All right. Good morning, everyone. Writing effective email. All of us are bombarded with email every day. So today's session, in just an hour, we're going to learn how to handle that raging tiger of email that come into our inbox every morning. Welcome. Thank you for those coming into chat. If you have a number of email that you think you get every day, 5 email, 10, 20, what is that number? Go ahead and put it in chat. I see Jeffrey says he gets 50 a day. Yes, 50 to 75. Wow, think about that. Even if it's a minute, which is obviously more than that, to respond to that. How many hours does that add up to the end of the week, at the end of the year? It's really crazy. Can all of you, hopefully all of you can see my screen. I don't know where this company Campaign Monitor got this information from, but they say in regular business, I guess they did a survey of business people, they're getting 121 business emails a day. And it says business, doesn't even include junk. I don't know about you, but I get lots of junk. Check that spam folder though. Sometimes junk, it's not junk. So our goal today is making sure you write to the reader. I think this is one of the biggest issues I see. I've been teaching writing for many years, worked as an HR manager, writing consultant. I think people write for themselves and not for the person receiving the message. So always put yourself in that person's shoes. Ask yourself how they're going to respond, what they need, what they already know. One of my pet peeves is when people say, as you know, well, I already know it. So why are you wasting my time? That's a pet peeve. Making sure your tone is polite. Just using the word please and thank you goes a long way. We'll talk about style, writing, the Twitter headline, the Twitter subject line, keeping it short today. People don't have a lot of time, but also keeping it polite. How to organize when you have lots of ideas or topics to cover. The general rule with email is one topic per email, if possible. And if you change the topic, change the subject line. I don't know about you, but that drives me crazy when, wait a minute, the topic changed and the subject line is still the same. Netiquette, just etiquette for the net. And my favorite word in email is ruthlessly. When we edit, what could we take out that's completely unnecessary? Because the fewer words we use, the fewer words our reader has to read, and the more likely they are to read the message. Research shows that readers will sometimes put aside a long message thinking, I'll come back to that later. I don't have time for this. So the shorter the message, the more likely it will be read. Also, simple words. I know I'm not speaking to a lot of lawyers here. The lawyers use big words to confuse. Oscar Wilde says, don't use big words. They mean so little.
I'm already roasted like a fucking turkey. You guys can eat me.
All right, so what's the issue? If you could change email in your organization, what is one thing you would change about the way email is used? So I will start by saying I work for a college and I wish people would not reply all when it's things like happy birthday or somebody's retiring or something that I don't need to see everybody's reply to, and it just clogs up my in basket. So I wish people would not copy me, CC me, or BC me on things I really don't care about or know about or want to know about. And I also wish people would stop sending unnecessary email. Pick up the phone once in a while. All right. So some of you coming in, go ahead, put it in chat or go ahead and unmute yourself. Anyone else? All right, just in the essence of time, we're gonna go quickly from slide to slide so we get, here we go, Carmen's coming in. I wish people would stop sending emails that are from other states. Okay, all right, okay. 3 unbreakable rules for email. We want to Know what you're talking about. Make sure it's crystal clear what it's about. Choose the best word in the subject line in the first line. Know your reader. What kind of relationship do you have? Is this a casual or is this professional? I see people using first names of people that they just met. Be very careful there. You want to always be professional. And also know your style. You don't have to write like anyone else. I think people should write more the way they speak. So before you write, always ask yourself, do I need to put this in writing? Is there any legal liability if I'm writing about a problem? Am I making the problem worse by adding fuel to the fire and saying, you know, oh, so-and-so was in charge of that job and he didn't check the, whoa, be careful. Also ask yourself, do I need to write? Does this need a reply? And maybe it just needs a one-word reply, like thank you. Who else might get this? Because once you send it out into that cloud, you never know whose desk it might land on. I remember when one of the major companies in this area went out of business, a disgruntled employee sent thousands of emails about how bad the company was and how they treated people and trying to get people to become part of a lawsuit. It was terrible. It went out to thousands and thousands of people. What's going to be the reader's reaction and how can you somewhat control that? If I know the person's going to be angry, how can I make that a little bit better by offering an option or a solution or another alternative? What do I have to say? And how can I save the reader time? Be careful there. You want to say something like, I'd like, if I don't hear from you by 5 p.m., I'm assuming that this is okay. But then someone will say, well, I didn't see your letter until your email until 5 p.m. and this is not right. So sometimes if it's something that you know they're going to go for, you can say something like that. Otherwise, you give them an option 1 or option 2. So they don't have to write a lot. You know, would you like this option or would you like this option? Numbering and using lists save people time. And for now, we're going to skip the video, but there is a great video, which I will include. You'll all get a copy of the slides. It's only about 2 minutes long and many videos out there for you to peruse. Basic, any type of writing really is, what is my goal? What do I want to accomplish? And if you could say that in one sentence, I want someone to know that their wall needs to come down. I want someone to know that we recommend premium paint. I want someone to know that a 50-year roof is a good investment. By the way, I just bought a 50-year roof, so hopefully it's a good investment. We want to make sure we're writing in an organized manner that's easy to follow and understand. And then we want to look at it and say, what do we need to take out? What have I missed? Do I have the dates right, the time right, the person's name spelled right? As you can see, my first name is Ray. A lot of people think I'm a man and they'll say, dear Mr. And I think, wow, they didn't even take the time to find out if I'm male or female or my preferred pronouns these days. Oops. So your first goal is, what is my purpose? Can I say it in as few words as possible? So you can say, I want to inform the team about something. I want to request something. I want to record or give data or information. I want to show you how to do something. So instructions for blank, that would be your subject line. And your first line would say, here are the instructions for the new computer program. Or I want to persuade people. It's open enrollment. You need to check your beneficiaries or whatever. Or I want to motivate people, encourage them to do something. So what would be the purpose? So Carmen's asking for screenshots. You can take screenshots, but I'm going to send you the whole deck. All right. So don't even worry about taking notes right now. You'll get the whole deck. That's what you get with this program. All right. So what is the purpose of an email message you might write? And you don't even have to write it in the best way. Just tell me. You're telling a customer about a problem. You're asking for someone to pay their bill. You are reporting on a site visit. Something's missing. Maybe the power didn't get shut off on time. You want to make sure you say that in as few words as possible. And again, that should be in your first line. So if you have a power outage at the site, your subject line might be power outage at, and then the location, parking garage X. And then your first line would be, greetings, the power is out at this location. And then what? Are you asking for help? Are you telling the person what you did? Are you just reporting it so that you have it in your records for overtime costs? So you need to ask yourself, what is your purpose? And then what is the reader's understanding of the message? Do they have to do anything? And if they do have to do something, you want to put that in the first line or the last line. There's something called primacy recency. Think about when you watch a movie on Netflix. If you're not captured within the first 5 minutes, you're like, this is a dumb movie, I'm shutting it off. It's the same way with email. If people don't get what you want in the first line, a lot of times they'll set it aside and they'll forget about it. They won't come back. So that first line, really important. I always tell people not to start with the word I, because that's not reader focused. Like, I'm writing to tell you versus this is an update for you. It's like I'm giving information. I'm not telling or, making people feel like I'm large and in charge. This is a cooperative event. Again, we're not going to spend any time on this, but this is something I want you to think about. If your audience is going to be hostile, they're already mad, it's going to be a little bit different technique. And I'll cover that in the next class if you guys are signed up, like the difference between good news and bad news. Bad news, we use a lot more words. For example, good news, any audience, congratulations, you got the raise. Bad news, thank you for choosing us as your construction company. We do our best to make sure that no problems ensue. Due to the rising cost of gas, we are adding X charge, something like that. We don't say, too bad, you have to pay more. We cushion the words when it's bad news. We also cushion the words depending on the people we're writing to. Are they experts? Do they want to know the measurements? I worked at Facebook for a few years and I worked with the IT department. They always wanted to give me numbers and I'm like, not a numbers person. Just help me to understand what the problem is, but don't give me the numbers. That's for your technical people. So once you know your purpose and your audience, who are these people? And be very careful too with the audience. Make no assumptions. Sometimes we assume that person is like us because they work in the same field, and we might use language that we would use on the job site that may not be appropriate in the email, that may not even be understood. So be very careful with that. Once we know our purpose and our audience, move on to organization. How can we organize? Well, Reader's Digest, if you have ever read Reader's Digest, simple 5th grade level. And they always start with the big idea, headline, catches your idea. And that first paragraph makes you want to read the rest of the message, but the message is short. And that's why I tell people, Reader's Digest version for email. That's why you're going to state your most important information right up front. First thing, I call it BIF, big idea first. In writing, it's called the inverted paragraph, because Reader's Digest, if they only had so much room, they would always cut out the last paragraph. Kind of interesting historical information there. When you do have ideas that you want to stand out, you might want to bold them, put them in a list, 1, 2, 3, remembering that 1, 2, 3 is different than bullets. 1, 2, 3 indicates a sequence of events, an order of events. Bullets mean any of these things could be done in any order, but people love lists. They love punch checklists, right? So if I want you to do these 3 things and I list them in order of how I want you to do them or what you need to do, that's going to be easy for a reader to understand. Boom, boom, boom. This is what I need to do. Choose vivid words. One of the most overused words in the English language is the verb to be, is, was, were. Really think about it. What does is mean? Doesn't mean very much, right? Doesn't indicate action. So if we could use what we call concrete verbs, and I don't mean the cement. Concrete means words that everybody knows exactly what they are versus abstract words. Abstract word might be a vehicle. You can't drive vehicles here, but vehicles could be an airplane, a train, a truck, right? Versus you can't park cars here. That's going to be much more concrete. So thinking about the words you choose, do they mean the same thing to your readers? I come from the East Coast, and when I was there, I don't know if it's still a word, but when I was in college, we used to use the word hooch for beer. And then if I came here and said, oh, are you guys drinking hooch? People will go, what are you doing? So even geographically, words will mean something different. And even on construction sites, make sure the words mean the same thing. How much wiggle room do you have? Make sure that people know what your actions are. What do they need to do with this? It should be the first line or the last line. Please respond by midnight, or please ensure that this is done. And if you can give them a why does it need to be done? That's going to make them act. We don't want to have cost overruns. Safety is an issue. We'll have to have extra security if this gate isn't locked, whatever it is, versus telling people to do without telling them why to do it, less likely people will do it. All right. Give them a reason to comply if at all possible. Interesting. Those of you, again, I worked in sales, and we always know that people are more likely to read a PS. We don't often put PS, postscript, at the end of after our signature at the end of an email, but guess what? People pay attention to that. So if you really want someone, PS, I love to put uplifting comments in PS. I'll say, PS, I'm so glad you're on my team. I don't know. Some people say, oh, that sounds really corny. I wouldn't do that. That's not me. Again, know yourself. Why would you do a PS? PS, I would say, I know that you always meet your deadlines, or I know that you're good with deadlines. Be careful with always and never. I know that you meet your deadlines, so I'm counting on you. If it's something really urgent, but you don't want to sound too pushy, you can use a PS. So how do you organize? Think about the topics or the points you want to make. And remember primacy, recency. The first point should go first. Like the most important point should be stated first, because that's where people are going to pay attention, and last. So anything in the middle of a list or a middle of an email often gets skipped. Think about that. Even the middle of a sentence. Short sentences, more likely to be remembered. Just do it, or make sure it's done by 5, or please make sure it's done by 5. But when we're organizing and we have lots of things to cover, we might want to start with a mind map. If you're a visual learner like I am, an example of a project, how are we starting it, planning it, executing it? You might want to do a board that I like to put Post-it notes on a board, because I work in human resources, and I'll say, okay, what do we want to put in our social media policy? Do we want to talk about all the different social media sites, how people use it at home, at work, what's going to happen if they use it, indicating anything associated with the company, those kind of things. Also, simple charts, something like this one where you have the light bulb and the to-do. Even in an email, if you can put a visual and the people can see the visual, people are visual learners. They love something like that versus to read paragraphs. If you can make it at all visually engaging, people are more likely to read it. And one more thing I want to add, because I think our lives are changing. I already see it. Artificial intelligence. If you go use a program like Grammarly, artificial ChatGPT will actually write your email. And guess what? I have tried it. It is good. It is, you can detect it with certain programs you can use to make it undetectable. It's kind of scary. If you guys want more information about that, see me after class. Some ways to organize your message. Lots of ways. Typically, you're going to write topically, by topic. But again, most important, least important in the middle. So what is nailing? Guys, I had to look this up because I know nothing about nails, but I knew I was working with construction. And then my husband goes, they use a nail gun. What are you talking about? Anyway, but nailing involves Three things: the size, the angle, and the types of pieces. So if you're telling someone how to do something, organizing it in this manner by topics. Those are the three things I'll talk about. Spatially, if you're working on a project where you want to say this is happening on the east side, this is happening on the west side, keep it organized. Don't mix and match. Don't say east side, west side, east side, west side. People get confused. Keep similar ideas together and use transitions like also on the east. Keep the ideas tied up. Chronological, this is probably for your project. What's going to happen first? You know, do we have the electricity in, the water in, the framing in, et cetera, et cetera. It's going to be step by step. And then problem solution. What was the problem? So I just recently read, you know, I do a lot of work with construction companies. So I just recently read that the road was not closed off while they were bringing in large supplies. And so that was a real issue. Why didn't it happen? Let's make sure it doesn't happen again versus pointing fingers and blaming people like you were supposed to make sure the road was closed down versus, hey, just letting you know when we got there at 7 a.m., there were no barriers up. You know, who was, you know, what happened? We don't even want to say who. What happened? Don't start blaming people. So you really want to look at what you're writing and ask yourself, if I were getting that message, am I seeing it as a you know, finger pointing, and I'm going to get defensive? I'm going to, do I see it as a problem solving message? All right, so stop me. I tend to go really fast. Again, I'm from the East Coast. I'm trying to do as much as I can in an hour, but I don't want people to think, oh, you're going way too fast. I will slow down. And I see we have lots of people online now. Great. Welcome, welcome, everyone. Use the chat to ask me a question anytime. Stop me if I say something you don't understand or you need more info on. I'm more than happy. But we're doing great on time right now. We are talking about the parts of an email. Subject line might be one of the most important parts because people will look at the subject and decide whether or not they're going to read it, right? It's kind of like the headline of a newspaper. Yeah, gas prices up. What else is new, right? But if you have the subject of an email saying road closure on project X, I'm going to read it because I'm like, wait a minute, that's my project. So make sure that your subject line is short, vivid. I like to include a verb if possible. Why? Because verbs create action in our minds. It's a movie. Most of us are visual learners. We want to see the movie happening. In fact, I have a friend who's an attorney, and she said, this is how lawsuits are won. Jury wants to actually be able to imagine that the event occurred. Well, it's the same thing in your email. People want to imagine what you're talking about. They want to understand it. So if you can use a verb, you know, that's going to be much more powerful. Make it easy to find your email later in case people are saving it, archiving it. Don't use the one word heading like urgent or FYI. Everything's FYI. So I don't even think we ever have to use that. But if you overdo urgent, that's going to be, oh, that's Ray. Everything's urgent for her. She's an East Coast gal. She thinks everything is her, you know, be careful with that. It's like the boy who cried wolf. When you open your email, ask yourself, am I starting with the word I? That's kind of a pet peeve of mine. If you're starting with that word I, you're already writing about yourself and you're not writing to the person. So try to think about using you in a way that doesn't make people defensive, like, as promised, here is your document, or as you requested, or to follow up to your email. Anytime you can use the word you or your, it makes the person feel like you're giving them something, not asking to take from them. Watch your tone, please and thank you. Again, I worked for a company that made a lot of products, and people would write in and they say, you know, your product sucks. And I would always start with, thank you for letting us know about your experience with our product, versus you probably didn't use it correctly, right? Which is what I wanted to say. Most important ideas go first. And if you're replying to an ongoing conversation, you don't have to keep putting in the background unless you're bringing new people in. And even then you might have an attachment, like see attached background. I don't need all of this. The shorter the email, the more likely it will be read. I don't know how many times I have to say that, but it's kind of my mantra. In the message section, make sure when you do your greeting, there's a line, a space between dear or hello, and then a space. And then the paragraph is short, because visually it's called chunking. People don't like to read long paragraphs. So in an email, think about one screen, no longer than one screen, if possible, and paragraphs that are no longer than maybe 6 lines at the most. We'll vary your sentences. Again, that's another class. We don't want all the sentences to be super short, but the shorter the sentence, the more likely it's understood. Something called the fog index, but how does it make, and the more words, the more foggier the sentence is. Use bullets or numbers instead of full sentences. You don't need all that. If you use a bullet, if you could start with a verb, here are the 5 things that need to be done at Project X. 1, cover chipped door. 2, install vanity, whatever. But if you can put bullets or numbers versus long paragraphs. Also, if you have a lot of information, can you use a header? We'll talk a little bit about that, or a visual. And then at the end, what do you want from the person? You know, let me know if these items are handled. Let me know if you need more info. Of course, none of us want that. Be careful with that rubber stamp ending, like, please don't hesitate to contact me. That drives me crazy. Ooh, I'm hesitating. Why am I, you know, if you need more information, of course, you're going to contact you. Why are you even wasting my time with that line? That's my personal preference. Why just say, let me know if you need something else. All right. Be very positive and avoid cliches. Overuse words. Would you say that in a conversation? If not, don't say it in an email. All right, so let's do a little activity here. What is wrong with these subjects? Let's hear from somebody. Let's even either unmute yourself or write it in chat. But what is wrong with this first one? I feel like a kindergarten teacher. You guys know what's wrong with it. What's wrong? Anyone? Alexis, Sergio, Keith?
Too urgent?
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Eric. Good job. So important. Read immediately. Okay. Now, if it's truly important, you can put this, but only one exclamation point. And I'm not even going to get into overusing exclamation points, because in business, when you overuse exclamation points and everything is urgent, again, when it's really urgent, people won't pay attention. So use them, but kind of like spice in your stew, right? You don't want too many. It's going to overpower and not be effective. JD says it's aggressive. Yeah, it is aggressive. But go ahead.
What about capitalizing?
You can capitalize the whole subject, or you can capitalize just the first letters in a subject line, which I would recommend only because it makes the subject line stand out. But I would not capitalize anything in the email unless it's truly urgent. And, you know, again, all caps, people presume you're shouting at them. So I wouldn't capitalize this, like the big problems, right? I wouldn't do that. And also it's too vague. What's the problem? A better subject line there might be need assistance at Project X, because really that's what this is about. We have a problem, we need your help, or need help. Use the word help, not assistance. That's much better. Interesting. You know, my background is actually I have a master's degree in rhetoric, which does nothing for you, but I love the etymology, the origins of words. And so, you know, where do these words come from? You know, what do they really mean? What do they say? And, you know, if you look at the word assistance, that is a verb made into a noun. So assist is the verb. Assistance is a noun. It's not powerful. Verbs are way more powerful. Plus the word help. I understand what help means. Do I know what it means to assist? Do I just hold your elbow? Do I do something? So think about what it really means when you're using words. Words matter. And they won't even go into that. They really do.
Right.
They set the tone. I always tell people, I always remember what my dad whispered in my ear when I got married. And that was well over 40 years ago. Okay. So words matter, especially for people. They will remember what you said, even in an email. All right. So what do we say when we greet someone? In this day and age, and I don't want to get myself in trouble here. We need to make sure we're using the person's preferred name, preferred pronoun, preferred spelling. All right. No nicknames. Even if you call that person a nickname on the job, make sure they're okay with it. We've had lawsuits on that. So make sure if you're writing to someone for the first time, we always look at their signature. How are they signing it? Are they signing it Lou, or are they signing it Lewis? So if they sign it Lewis, I say dear Lewis, unless, or dear Mr. Smith if it's the first time. Always go with the notch up if you don't know. So if you don't know if it's Mr. or Miss, or you can't tell by the name, which is very common today. I have a student whose name was Purple Long. Purple. I didn't know if it was a male, female, Mr., Mrs. So I just said, dear Purple Long, right? So your greeting sets the tone. Is this formal? Is it informal? Make sure it's spelled properly, and make sure you're using the preferred pronouns, even when you're referring to someone on the job. If you say, you know, Chris did it. Chris could be female or male these days. Do we use she? Do we use he? Or do we just keep saying Chris because we don't know? So be very careful there. All right, what's wrong with this? Okay, so somebody says that I usually start with hi. I think that's fine. My general rule is if I'm receiving an email, I respond the same way. They say hello, I say hello. Very simple. Keep it simple. They say hi, I say hi. If they say dear Miss so-and-so, I say dear Miss so-and-so. Be careful with to whom it may concern, because it doesn't concern me if it says that, right? I'm like, this is a form letter. Be careful with that. Even if you don't know who it is, you can say, dear hiring manager, dear parts service. You know, you don't want to say to whom it may concern, because then you don't know whose basket it's going to end up in. Yeah, that's fine. So I just use hi, not to save time and not to make a mistake with their name. I think that's fine. I think that's more than fine. All right. We don't have to spend a lot of time on that, but I have seen lawsuits on the misuse of nicknames, or not the person's preferred pronoun. You're using I. In our college now, we have several people who use the pronoun they. They don't use he or she, it's they. Or em. I've seen em. So be very, very careful, because even if you're writing about that person, you don't want to use the wrong pronoun. Okay, this is our quick activity. This is an actual letter that went out, or email that went out from another company, no one here, but a previous company I worked with. I took out all the identifying information. And by the way, if you guys want to share samples with me that I can use in future construction classes, I would love to. And if you share a sample with me, I'll give you feedback. So all of you should have my email. I'm going to go ahead and put my email in the chat. So if you want to send me, but I'll have to be able to use your sample. I will take out any identifying information, your name, the company name, but this is a real letter that went out. I want you to tell me if your last name begins with A through M. I want you to look at the first two sentences and tell me what's wrong or what's right with it. If your name begins with O through Z, I want you to look at where it says Jonas to the end and tell me what's wrong or what's right with this. So go ahead and look at that. You can even look at the subject line. Does the subject line tell you what this is about? And I'd love to hear from somebody. Carmen's doing a fabulous job. I want 5 of you, Carmen's, 5 people just like Carmen. But the rest of you, you can unmute. Don't worry. This is a learning activity. No one's going to say, okay, Jody's perfect. Thank you, Jody. Redundancy. You already said it. Why are you saying it again? Perfect. Anyone else? So who could tell me about the subject line? Does it tell you what the email's about? I don't think so.
No.
Not at all. Do you need something? Yes, you might want to say need compliance documents. Okay. So
I think,
I'm gonna go ahead.
I think X project, I mean, it needs to be more specific, like what is the project instead of X project?
Yeah, well, I just put that down because I was trying to take out the name.
Oh, I
But
see.
yeah, it should be the number or the name of the project. Absolutely. All right. Here's the rewrite. Just to give you an idea of what we did in class. So, subject, complete docs and details to close out project X. That summarizes the whole email. And then it starts with please, one of my favorite words to start an email with. Please help close out project X by completing the following: compliance forms, punch sheet, final payroll, ABC, right? And then why? We start with the why: to avoid overrun costs or to avoid budget overruns. These documents and details need to be completed by August 16. Thank you for your and your team's help. A little bit different tone, a little bit different. It says the same information, much easier to read. People know exactly what they need to send and what they need to do. Okay, and notice I put the account, a made up account number there too. How can I help the reader? I attach the form. Maybe even if I knew what these forms were about, which I don't, but this was an email sent to me. If I knew what they were about, I might say, just complete sections 3 and 4. That's all you need to do. Make it easy where the person doesn't go, oh my goodness, 500 pages I have to complete. I'll do that later. Whatever you can do to make the reader know that it's going to be easy, that's what we want to do. Yeah, thank you, Jody. Thank you for participating. I really appreciate it. All right. Excuse me, headers. Instead of using a long paragraph like this, we're going to visit these job sites or do this job. Use a chart like this: date, location, store number. My table's a little off on Google Sheets, but and you have to be careful again if people can read this. So sometimes you want to do it in an Excel chart and attach it as a photo, and then it will come out really nice. Or just even here with, we said, what's the holidays? You don't need a lot of words. People just want to know, what are our holidays? Find the 2023 vacation schedule here, okay, or holiday schedule here. Lists are great. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. You guys know what lists are. What's the difference between these squares or the bullets? No difference. It's your preference, but just be consistent. Don't just be using, oh, I can do all this. I have work with an administrative assistant. She's always putting extra stuff in the email, like, I'm going on vacation, and she puts a little airplane. It's like, oh gosh, I don't really need to see the airplane that you're going on vacation, right? It just takes up space on my email. So just because you can use different bullets and different colors and different numbers doesn't mean that you should. Just make it key to good writing is consistency, clarity, make it clear. Notice when you're using a list, it's better to start with a verb. What do you want people to do? Think of it as an action. So I want you use our website to change, to make, to find. All right. So much better than reading this. All right. So how would you make a list using this information here? What would be your 3 bullet points? Let's see if I can call on somebody. Anybody tell me what those 3 bullet points would be? Save you time. Anybody? I feel like that movie, go ahead.
Proper punctuation,
Yes.
saving time, and proofreading.
Yes.
Oh, and
So,
proofreading
yeah.
and edit.
And make sure the verbs are the same tense. So you wouldn't want to say saving time. You would say the same verb tense. Avoid, use, save. Check your list. Makes it nice and easy, but same verb tense. All right. Usually your program will find that for you. I don't know if it will. All right. So bottom line, in your emails, greet them. If you could say please or thank you with your purpose, right from the reader's point of view. Don't start with I. Clear, courteous, short paragraphs, white space. So make the paragraph short, preferably no more than 3 paragraphs in any email. Again, one screen. Use the most positive words instead of saying, problem. We might want to say issue or snafu, or I don't know what word you use, but if there's any words that you can use to make it, or this is what we're doing to improve the situation, is much better than this is what we're doing to address the problem. That sounds bad. Have a clear call to action. We call it a CTA. What do you want people to do? Sign the form, get it in by this date, make sure that the paint is, approved, doesn't have lead, whatever it's going to be. And then your signature should be professional. I hope none of you use any cute little sayings or words or pictures. Just if it's outgoing, you want your name, your title, if you have one, name of the company, if they don't already know it, phone number. They already know your email because you're emailing them. Okay, so you don't have to put the email, but you do need to include the phone number if you want them to call you. So just on the essence of time, let's just choose one of these. What would be a better opening than any one of these sentences? I'm going to wait for someone to write. And Carmen, I appreciate you. Go ahead too. Carmen's been so interactive. I love it. But I'd love to hear from some of the rest of you. What's wrong with these? What's wrong with these openings?
Come on, people.
Come on, people. All right, how about number 3? It has come to my attention that this drives me crazy. Of course it's come to your attention. That's why you're writing. You don't need that whole part of the sentence, okay? You don't need in the event of, you need the word if there's a power outage, we should have a backup. 90% of the sentences I see written in email could be much shorter, much clearer. Ask yourself if you're relying on old-fashioned, worn-out phrases that don't mean anything anymore. All right, especially to the younger generation. It's very interesting, the research that's being done on the millennials today. Not to put them down in any way. They want to know, what do you do? How fast do we do it? Don't waste my time, So we want to make sure that we're really making sure that the job gets done by writing to the way they want the message, not the way you want it. So clear, concise. Also, number 2, no extra apologies, no background information. I don't need to know all this. Here's the information you requested. All right. Okay. Or this might help you. I don't know if you need it, but this might help you. All right. And number 1, well, again, if this is a problem, you might want to say, hey, next time do this to make sure your email doesn't land in spam. Okay. All right. Oh, somebody's leaving. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I will. Someone has to leave, jump out. That's fine. So we've got the beginnings and now we have the endings. Quick summary. If you need it, again, email short, call to action. I appreciate your help in resolving this issue. I look forward to hearing from you. Please let me know if you need anything else. So end in a way that is positive and then lets the reader know what you need. What's the next step? Why did I get this? What do you need me to do? So your call to action, first line, subject line, first line, last line. That's where the calls to actions. Don't bury them. All right. Phrase them politely. Don't ask them why they didn't do it. Let them know that maybe you sent it and it landed somewhere else, or I don't want you to give them too many excuses, but could you please resend that? Not sure. If somebody says, I sent it, you didn't get it, I don't know what's going on. Could you please resend it? Let's make sure that this gets taken care of. Don't blame them. Say, I don't think you sent it. A lot of times I will ask people to resend and then they kind of on their own go, oh no, it was in my box. I guess I just had it as a draft. I didn't mean to. So don't blame them if at all possible. All right, I'm going to ask for one person to give me just one of these. Since we have 3, how would you rephrase one of these requests? Very easy. So I have Who do I have on the line? There we go.
How about just a friendly reminder for the first one, just a friendly reminder about the time change?
Yeah, or even just remember we're on Pacific time, or that, yeah, keep it short. Just a reminder, we're on Pacific time. I will be leaving at 5 p.m. PST, something like that. Yeah. Whenever you can, whenever possible, try not to use the word not or no. Believe it or not, people respond negatively to that. So tell people what they can do versus what they can't do. So you may park in parking lot B versus don't park in parking lot B. That's the staff parking lot. It's going to sound a different tone. Tell people where you can park. You may park in parking lot B. Parking lot C is reserved for staff versus don't park in parking lot C. That's the staff's parking lot. All right. All right. So I really like please let me know when the reports will be finished, and then maybe to give them a reason. Doug is updating the board with this info and would like to do that on Friday. All right. What else do we want to make sure that, are we using a formal or an informal closing? Basic things you want to include: your name, don't have to use your email address, etc. These are some, again, I'll send you the slides. You decide. Research shows people like the word regards, best regards. Interesting. Okay. And the step 3, the final step in the email process, is edit ruthlessly. I love that word, ruthless. Why do we need to be ruthless? Because if we eliminate 5 words out of every email message we send, that's 5 fewer words the reader has to read and understand, etc. So I go through my whole, sometimes if it's really important, I'll write it and then I'll leave it and then I'll come back to it. And I'm imagining myself reading it as the person receiving it and ask myself, is it clear? Is it polite? Is it, is it concise? Can I take anything out? What's going to make it easiest for the reader to respond? Is it clear what I need? So you can read the document to someone. I like to even read it to my 5-year-old grandson. Sometimes I'll say, hey, what do you think about this? He said, oh, he'll say, that sounds nice, Nana. Okay. Although he's also tells me that my arms are squishy, so I don't know. You can try a different approach, such as reading the document backwards. What we used to do when I was in another role is that sometimes if it was really important, we would print the document out and then we would take another piece of paper and cover all the rest of, we would only read line by line. So our eyes were not moving forward. So if it's a really important document and you want to make sure it's, it's proofread carefully, you can do that. Another thing you could do is use a different color or size font. Just make it big on your screen or a different color because it makes it look different. You won't send it that way, but you'll do that. One more thing I want to say is if there's any chance that it's a sensitive subject, I like to leave the to and the CC off until I finish writing, because I can't tell you like how many times I've sent something and wish I hadn't sent it. Now, depending on the program you're using, Gmail has a setting, and I think Hotmail does too. I don't know what you're using, but Gmail has a setting. I have it on the highest setting. Wait, I can recall my message within 30 seconds. So make sure, oh, wait a minute, I forgot to do that. Let me recall it, and then I'll fix it and send it back. I don't know, maybe I'm just getting old and I need that function, but you might want to do that. Okay, Outlook has it, yeah, definitely. Double check spellings. I just had somebody in my class, his name was Andrew, but it's Andru. So very interesting, not what you would expect someone's name to be spelled. And he made it very clear. He's like, I don't like when people misspell my name. I told them, okay. So make sure you double check dates, times. I don't know about you, but I cannot believe it's halfway through 2023. I'm still on 2022 sometimes when I'm writing. Double check. And then I think this is the most important for me is I know the kind of errors I make, so I'm more likely to look for them. I know I leave out words. I type so fast, I will leave out words. Another thing you can do is ask people to give you feedback. What did you think of my email? Hopefully you ask people who will give you honest feedback, sometimes too honest, but people will give you feedback like, I think your messages are too long, or I think sometimes you give us background information we don't need, or, I just think you could get to the point quicker. So is there anything else you would add for how you would proofread or make sure your document is always, one more thing, save templates. If you're always writing the same thing, people ask you the same questions. Well, number one, I would say, maybe you can answer that on your website or in your forms or in your orientation or whatever. So if people are always asking you that question, there's something going on. Something's not clear. But you can have a frequently asked questions section on your website, or you could have a template where you always tell the people the same thing. For example, I was telling the college today that when people register for these classes that I'm doing, they should immediately get the Zoom link. I don't know if we can do that with the programming we have, but that would be the best way. And then they could put it on their calendar. All right. So if we're getting questions about Zoom and we're answering all the time, like, oh, I didn't get the Zoom, I didn't get the Zoom. How can we fix that problem? And then we don't have to send email. That would be the best, right? One last thing I want to say about email. It is not the only option you have. Thank goodness some of us are back to work face to face. I love that. Could see how people are feeling, get the whole message, but also pick up the phone. We can get a lot from the tone. Does the person care about us? Do we get the information immediately? Are we strengthening the relationship? If you're only using email, I think you're missing out on something. You're missing out on the vocal, the nonverbal that composes the vocal. All right, we have just a few minutes left. We've done the 3 stages: know your purpose, organize, and then proofread, edit. Make sure that your email is courteous. So if you can respond within 24 hours, some people actually have a little note that we will respond within 24 hours. So if you say you're going to do it, you better do it. Watch the emoticons. I actually saw a lawsuit. Like, I didn't know, and I'm not going to say what it is because I am an older person, but these little words people use and the winking eye, are you winking at me? Because are you interested in me? But somebody in the early days wrote to me, LOL. And I thought they were calling me a little old lady. I didn't know what that meant. And especially when you're dealing with people from other countries, they don't always know what these symbols or these words mean. So be careful. Try to keep your language gender neutral. I've been watching a lot of videos with my grandkids, and every time they show a construction worker, it's male. Well, that's fine, but it kind of makes me think that that's not always the case. So be careful there. We already talked about urgent and important. Know when to stop emailing. If we're going back and forth, it's time to change the channel. Pick up the phone, go talk to the person, use a different method. And you can actually, there's a little program you can use that will shorten. If you have a long URL, a long website, there's actually programs that will shorten them for you. Google does this too in your Google Docs. Technology is crazy, it's changing. Don't use too much punctuation. Women tend to use more punctuation than men, which flags them as being a little more emotional, which is not always wise for their career sometimes. So just be aware of that. Don't attach files. A lot of people won't open them. Why at all possible, try to make sure that there's no attachments. Don't reply to all unless everybody needs to know. Don't use all caps. It's seen as shouting. And avoid chat speak. I mean, my students email me all the time, and instead of YOU, they use you. Instead of ARE, they use R, and it kind of drives me crazy because it's an English class, okay? So anyway, that's all right. That's my pet peeve. This is an English class. Please use English. A little internet humor. I love all this. This particular one with Maury. Should you send a read receipt? What is that saying? Be careful, because if you're telling someone I've programmed this to make sure you read it, I'm saying I don't trust you. So be very careful with read receipts. Obviously, if it's a legal matter and you know, they're going to say they didn't get it and you sent it, you want to get a read receipt, but be very careful with just everyday emails asking people for read receipt. It does not build trust. Okay. And I love this one. Another urgent email that is not urgent. So today we've talked a lot about a lot of ways that you could improve your writing. I would say your emails. I would say get that beautiful headline, subject line. What is this about? Do I care? Do I need it? Get that first line from the reader's view. Make it clear what the person needs to do. Once you do that, you're pretty much set. But we can always improve our skills. As I said, I'm taking an AI, artificial intelligence writing class right now. It's very scary because I think writing teachers in general are going to be not needed in the future with this technology. It's kind of scary. But find the tools and checklists and programs out there. There's even a program that helps you not check your email so often during the day, so that you can get more done and just set aside certain times. So there's lots of programs, technology out there. Check the tools online and with other people are using, like Grammarly is a really good program. I use the editor feature on Word, which I really love. Those of you, I don't have time to show you now, but I can show you how that works. It's very easy to make sure you have it on your toolbar. Online resources abound. There's so many freebies out there. I'm going to give you a whole list where you can go and do your own research, but there's gads. Books and articles. I tell my students, especially those for whom English is their second language, the best way that you can improve your English skills, read books. Books will really help you. And now we have online books where you can look up words right online if you don't understand them. I love that. Get help, get a mentor, somebody who writes well, ask for help. People like to help. We're helping creatures. And then ask for feedback. And remember that not all feedback is good or necessary. Like I said, my kids give me feedback. Mom, you need to lose 20 pounds. Okay, whatever, you know, thank you for that feedback. Whatever it is, thank people, whether or not it's helpful. Hopefully we'll get some helpful feedback. So we've spent an hour and we've gone through a lot of topics here. What are you going to do? That's the thing. If you take a class and you just go, oh, that was interesting, and I never do anything with that information, then you're not going to learn something. So right away, I would like you to go back, look at an email you've written and ask yourself, how could I have said that differently? Or look at an email you always send and ask yourself, how can I phrase that differently? You can also send it to me. I might use it in a class. I would never use your name. I would never use your company name. But if you send me a sample, I will tell you how I would improve it. All right, no more than one page. I'm not reading your proposal documents, okay? But I'm more than happy to give you feedback from a college professor's perspective, okay? From an HR manager's perspective. Like I said, I was an HR manager, still doing HR work. What do you need from me? If you're signing up for future classes, we've got another writing class coming up in a couple of weeks. What do you need? What can I give you that we didn't provide you with today? And I'm happy to send that to you too, as well as on email, or give you some suggestions. Lots of videos out there you can watch. There's a Q&A. I think, Asim, are you sending an evaluation out? I'm not sure. You might see an evaluation coming out in email. And the last thing I want to share with you is all these wonderful writing resources. So there are 7 email templates for program managers. When you get this PowerPoint deck, all you have to do is click on the link and it will bring you to, and I have no kickbacks from these. You know, I just went online and I looked through them and I found the ones that I thought were the most interesting. So here's templates where you can go, I need to invite people to a kickoff. I need to change the status of the project. I need to ask for more resources. So you click on that and it goes to the page and it gives you a sample email that you can actually copy, paste it, and then change it to your own words. All right. So there's lots of things like this. This is one of my favorite ones. Oops, sorry. I'm going to change that one. Got the wrong one there, but there's infographics on grammar and one more. Let's say, oh, I like this one. What to say to contractors, and this was really simple. You know, no to the site visit, yes to the site visit, no phone call to the, you know, just really simple, right? And it tells you exactly what you can say. So that's what I'm saying about the internet is there are so many resources out there. If you just even write, if you're looking for, you know, power outage, if you put power outage construction site email, you put that in your search, the Google search, hit go, and you're going to get lots of stuff. Once you have a good response, something that works, save it, and then you can cut and paste it in to the email, so you're not having to do it over and over again. All right, I'm going to stop here because we are at 10 o'clock. I'm going to actually stop the recording. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Okay. No. Okay. All right. All right. Stop sharing my screen. Okay. No more share. Have you guys been seeing my screen the whole time? I hope so. All right. All right. Good. Okay. All right. There we go. There's my stop share button. My stop share button was, all right. Okay. All right. I got one email just telling me they liked it. That's fine. Other questions, other comments, questions and comments. That's it. Wow. Everybody's booking off. All right. Last thing I want to say is there's one more session coming up in 2 weeks on what to cut out. I have a whole list of things you can cut out, which are lots of things that we are doing all the time. So have a great week. Thank you, Justin, for coming. Thank you. Thank you. You'll be getting copies of the presentation. I'm going to stay on for a few more minutes. If someone wants to send me something, you could send it in the chat now. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Great. All right. Yes, the second section is totally different. It's more on going into how to say things and what to cut out of your email or any writing documents. All right. All right. Bye, everyone. I'll stay on if anybody wants to stay on.